bubbling up from deep within the earth, they are nature's enigma. Lumps of carbon transformed over billions of years of intense pressure and heat into priceless treasure.
Diamonds are a girl's best friend. They're so beautiful.
Diamonds have always captivated humankind. We marvel at the stars shining in diamonds, borrowed from the world's most exclusive jewelers. And every day, miners filter through tons of ore, hoping to hit the jackpot.
The thrill of finding a diamond, even a small one, is really something fantastic.
Every diamond sparkles, but only a select few become the stuff of legends. These are the diamonds men have killed and died for. Passed through the centuries, from sultans to swindlers, they've sparked curses and crowned queens, inspired great love affairs and daring thefts. These famous diamonds seem to have a life of their own. Here are their stories. The fascination with diamonds spans the globe, from South Africa's mines to the sorting rooms of London.
Diamonds they're like great Beethoven symphonies, even better. They go on forever. They're classic.
The word diamond comes from the Greek, adamas, indestructible. Older than the dinosaurs and harder than any material on Earth, diamonds are prized for their toughness, their ability to withstand intense heat, and the mysterious light they emit.
It sparkles, it fires the imagination, it reflects the light. People say you see your soul in it.
Consider the case of the notorious Hope, one of the largest blue diamonds in the world. While most diamonds are white, nature occasionally produces them in a rainbow of colors, their deep hue making them rare and coveted. Since its discovery in the 1600s, the Hope has crossed oceans and continents, been stolen and recovered. But that's not what made this 46-carat gemstone so famous.
The Hope is a remarkable diamond. There is said to be a curse. It certainly has brought a lot of bad luck.
Curses are like the curse of the mummy. You know, if you believe in them, they may happen, or circumstance around them will permit you. Personally, I don't believe in curses.
But the legacy of bad luck surrounding this stone is hard to ignore. In 1921, it inspired the serial film The Hope Diamond Mystery. The first episode shows the dastardly deed that supposedly set the curse in motion. A thief steals the diamond from a Hindu statue, unleashing the wrath of the gods. Maybe that's how it all started, maybe not. But this extraordinary diamond has more than earned its ill-fated reputation. During the 17th century, diamond merchant Jean-Baptiste Tavernier acquired the Hope in India and brought it to France.
At some stage, he'd come across the Hope and presented to Louis XIV. Louis XIV had so many diamonds in his tunics, I think he would have sunk like a lead balloon, probably, if he put in the sea.
While King Louis didn't drown, he did eventually contract gangrene and suffered a long and painful death. Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI inherited the beautiful blue diamond next, but didn't have much time to enjoy it. They both lost their heads at the guillotine during the French Revolution.
I think that's one of the tragic fates one could meet. Whether the diamond was the cause of it, I'll leave it to the imagination.
In 1792, the diamond was stolen from France. It resurfaced 20 years later in London, where a wealthy banker bought it and gave it his name.
Some historians even say precisely in 1830, Henry Hope came into possession of this particular diamond, and I think that name stuck to this diamond.
Not even diamonds can buy love, and sadly, Hope died a lonely bachelor. The killer diamond eventually found its way around the neck of his great niece, who often wore the Hope on stage. Despite the charm, perhaps because of it, her career and love life ended in shambles. The Hope's next few owners fared no better. The diamond left a trail of misfortune in its wake before it cast its dark cloud over American shores. Washington socialite Evelyn Walsh McLean was offered the Hope by the jeweler Cartier in 1911. Some say Cartier actually invented the legend of the curse to entice the daredevil aristocrat to buy it. Whatever the story's origins, it worked. But just to be on the safe side, Mrs. McLean had her new bauble blessed by a priest.
She was a little bit of an eccentric lady. She entertained lavishly in America. And she used to take the Hope diamond off her necklace and at parties would throw it up in the air and her dog would retrieve them, which is quite wild.
But the party didn't last forever. The son of the wealthy heiress was killed in an automobile accident. Her husband was committed to a mental hospital. And her daughter died from an overdose of sleeping pills.
She had a lot of personal tragedies, although she didn't ascribe them to the Hope. She said the Hope was lucky for her. Extraordinary thing to say in view of these tragedies.
After Mrs. McLean died of pneumonia at the age of 60, her estate decided to sell the ill-fated diamond. But who would dare risk the curse? A New York jeweler with an eye for fabulous gemstones and a flair for public relations rose to the Hope's challenge. Of the 300 most famous diamonds in the world, Harry Winston had already bought and sold 60. His name was famous, but because of the treasures he handled, his insurers never allowed his face to be photographed. Ronald Winston, like his father before him, must also protect his identity.
I remember hearing on the radio that he bought the Hope diamond and some other jewels for $1 million, which of course as a little boy was a number beyond the dreams of avarice.
The fabulous collection of the late Evelyn Walsh McLean, including the famous Hope diamond and the...
Harry Winston's purchase of the Hope in 1949 only served to cement his reputation as the king of diamonds. And then in 1958, Winston decided to give the Hope to the American people permanently. He chose an unusual method of delivery, one with a touch of Winston drama.
So eagerly are the fabulous blue-white Hope diamond.
He did something he'd never do today. He mailed it. He sent it by ordinary post to the Smithsonian from his office.
What tales they tell of the Hope. A history of 300 years of murder, death, bad luck. A curse on whoever owned it, says the legend. Its first owner assassinated.
Not everyone was thrilled with the gift, but today it remains in a bulletproof case at the Smithsonian. As far as we know, none of the tourists have been visited by the curse. There have always been mysterious powers attributed to diamonds. Over the centuries, people have believed that diamonds could ward off devils, calm the mentally ill, and provide the wearer with extra strength on the battlefield and in the bedroom. It was in the 15th century that the diamond came to symbolize the power of love.
The Emperor Maximilian of Austria married the Princess Mary of Burgundy and gave her a diamond engagement ring, and the diamond has served as a symbol of weddings for all those centuries.
If only they could ensure everlasting love. That certainly was the hope of Count Grigory Orlov, who bought this magnificent stone for his secret lover, Catherine the Great, ruler of the Russian Empire. Displayed at the Kremlin in Moscow, the 190-carat Orlov is set in the royal scepter. It remains the centerpiece of the Russian crown jewels. The Count helped plan the coup that placed Catherine on the Russian throne in 1762. But the Empress was a restless soul with a roaming eye. When she turned her powerful gaze towards other men, Orlov devised a plan to win her back.
Orlov apparently had bought the diamond in order to ingratiate himself with Catherine the Great. He'd fallen out of her favor. So I suppose, not to put too fine a construction, he wished to get back both in her favor and into her bedroom.
Orlov obtained the diamond legally from a merchant in Amsterdam, but it had a past shrouded in mystery. A deserter from the French Foreign Legion first spied this sparkler in an Indian temple.
The Orlov diamond, it's supposed to have adorned a Buddha as the third eye. and story goes that there is a French gentleman, very unscrupulous gentleman, gained access to the Buddha and eventually stole it and made off with it.
It is indeed a gift fit for a queen, and Catherine the Great was dazzled by the diamond.
Catherine took the stone and thanked him, but still dropped him. So eventually he wound up going insane and a poor man in an insane asylum. So it's a moral there somewhere along the line. Luckily the diamond survived even the Russian Revolution and Lenin in Moscow, and it's still there in the scepter today.
But men continued to put their faith in the power of the diamond. No modern personality is more identified with diamonds than Elizabeth Taylor. Taylor and husband number 5 and 6, Richard Burton, played out their larger-than-life passion in public and on the silver screen, celebrating makeups and breakups with lavish gifts of diamonds. The bigger, the better. This diamond, which came to be known as the Taylor-Burton, became a world-famous symbol of their stormy relationship. When it came up for auction in 1969, Burton set out to win the treasure for his ladylove.
And $2 million for it?
Cartier, I think, were the successful bidders, and Richard Burton was the runner-up. And the story I heard was that Richard Burton was in a well-known public house between London and Oxford, and there was simply a payphone there, and he was putting in money, and he was speaking either to his agent, who also, well, get that diamond, get it from Cartier, I want it for Liz. More money, crash should go in. Did you hear me? I want that, I'll pay anything for it. More crash, some of the locals started looking round, what's he up to?
Burton ultimately succeeded in getting the diamond.
What does 69.4 carats really mean? I mean,
do you want to see what...
It can't be dismissed as an idle bauble.
And Liz loved showing it off.
This monster.
Don't get fingerprints on it.
It still belongs to me, you know. If she leaves me, I keep the diamond, so it's all right.
But the love story was not to last. They were divorced and married and divorced again by 1976. By the way, Liz kept the diamond and sold it for a whopping $3 million. It was last spotted in Saudi Arabia. Diamonds like the Taylor-Burton don't turn up every day. The miracle of their violent birth may be the best adventure story of them all. Volcanoes don't just spew out smoke and molten lava. They also act as elevators for the world's hardest substance, diamonds. Diamonds grow hundreds of miles down deep within the earth. They are created when carbon is placed under crushing pressure and exposed to white-hot temperatures. After baking for hundreds of millions of years, a violent volcanic eruption can blast the crystals to the Earth's surface in just a few hours. Speed is of the essence. If the journey up takes too long, the carbon converts to graphite, which goes inside pencils, instead of forming diamonds, which may cap an emperor's crown. The world's first diamond mine was supposedly discovered by Alexander the Great in India, which was known as the initial cradle of the diamond industry.
India, up till the early 18th century, was the diamond capital of the world. Most of the diamonds were in fact found in a place called Golconda. That was the only source of diamond for the world.
One of the most extraordinary diamonds to come from the mines of India was known as the Koh-i-Noor, or Mountain of Light. This stone traveled a circuitous route from the hands of a madman to the head of a beloved queen. First noted in India in 1304, the Koh-i-Noor belonged to generations of Mughal emperors who treasured it for centuries before it was plundered by a ruthless Persian conqueror.
The Persian tyrant named Nadir Shah invaded India in 1739, and he of course had known that the Mughal emperor of Delhi possessed this famous diamond, and he contrived somehow to get that diamond. Nadir Shah was able to secure this information from the harem of the defeated Mughal emperor that the vanquished emperor had the Kohinoor diamond in the folds of his turban.
Once he learned the diamond's hiding place, the conqueror invoked an ancient custom.
And Nadir Shah said that in view of our friendship and let us exchange turbans. Well, the wretched chap could hardly refuse.
The defeated emperor did not show any sign of nervousness or anger or anything, so that Nadir Shah immediately withdrew to his own private space and unfolded the turban. And when he looked up, he said, "Kohinoor, mountain of light."
But the dazzling light show of the Kohinoor did not bring the Shah good fortune. He was assassinated a few years later, fulfilling a prophecy associated with the stone.
It was known as the mystic diamond because it said whoever owned the stone ruled the world, and it is also said that it was unlucky for a man to wear it, but lucky for a lady, because most of the men who held the stone had a tragic ending to their life.
This stone remained in perpetual motion throughout the 18th century, passing hand to hand by conquest and misadventure, until the Punjab, a northern territory of present-day India, was conquered and the British took control.
The last Punjab ruler, Ranjit Singh, had the misfortune that the English walked in and took his country away from him, and he lost not only his throne, but he lost also the most famous diamond in the world at the same time.
As the British expanded their empire in India, they claimed the Kohinoor for their queen in 1849. Victoria, the most powerful woman in the world at that time, would go on to rule England for 64 years. When she opened the 1851 exposition at the Crystal Palace, her new diamond was prominently displayed, but Victorian society was, in a word, unimpressed.
The Indians worshipped weight more than symmetry and brilliance.
Queen Victoria authorized its reshaping, and it's hard to imagine anyone being disappointed with a 109-carat diamond that resulted. Taking heed of superstition surrounding the stone, no British king or prince has ever worn the diamond. In 1994, the Kohinoor and the other crown jewels were moved into the jewel house within the grounds of the Tower of London. Bob Milling, the crown jewel curator at the time, warned potential thieves not to bother.
Well, as you can see by the construction of just this one particular case, heavy brass, stone, thick, bomb-proof, bulletproof glass, and then again covered by all the latest electronic and closed-circuit televisions. So I don't think that anybody's going to meet with much success.
Today, security for the collection appears formidable. But for hundreds of years, protection consisted of one man who earned tips after hours by offering private viewings of the crown jewels. In 1671, Colonel Thomas Blood, an Irishman, disguised as a member of the clergy, toured the collection with Talbot Edwards, the official keeper of the English crown jewels. Noticing the almost complete lack of security, Blood began plotting a daring heist.
So they got very friendly and very pally, and in due course they came to visit, and he brought some friends along, which he'd asked if the keeper would allow him to come and see the jewels and show them to his friends. And during that visit he then clubbed Keeper Edwards on the head.
Poor old Talbot woke up eventually and shouted, "Treason, treason, the crown is stolen."
Keeper Edwards' son, who was a young army officer, came back from leave and literally in the nick of time discovered them running out with pieces of the crown jewels as they dropped one, and they were arrested.
Today, it takes more than a clever disguise and a cunning rogue to make off with the world's most famous diamonds. In the $1.2 billion Millennium Dome in London, no expense has been spared to guard one of the world's newest and most dazzling diamonds, the Millennium Star. Protected by high-strength glass, cameras, and sound receivers that monitor if anyone is attempting to smash the glass, this diamond is secure, and considering its worth, it better be.
There are only about 100 or so diamonds in the world that are in excess of 100 carats, this being one of them. Each one of them is so individual, so very different. And in that case, they are extremely rare.
In the Millennium Dome, Prime Minister Tony Blair and Queen Elizabeth anxiously awaited the unveiling of the Millennium Star 10 minutes before the start of the 21st century. Following on the heels of the first royal visitors, crowds have gathered, hoping to catch a glimpse of an earthbound star.
It certainly looks brighter than the brightest star that you can see in the sky. Absolutely white as white could be. And it's cut so fantastically. There's such fire and sparkle. It looks to me like a star. It was very easy to name. We named it in about 3 minutes. De Beers Millennium Star is just a perfect, classic, beautiful miracle.
Diamonds don't come out of the ground sparkling like the Millennium Star. It takes a true artist to polish Mother Nature's perfect design. One cut can release the fire in the ice diamonds are famous for, or turn a priceless gem into a pile of dust. At the William Goldberg Diamond Corporation in New York City, experts are engaged in the age-old craft of lapidary, or diamond cutting, handed down from father to son. They must decide how to carve around the flaws in the rough diamond and extract the polished stone.
The rough dictates many things to you. You may look for an emerald cut, but there may be a hidden imperfection which will say, you want an emerald cut, but I'm going to be a pear shape.
Whether it ends up as a marquee cut or an oval shape, with nothing in nature harder, it takes a diamond to cut a diamond. It is this painstaking process of rubbing facets or faces into rough diamonds that transforms ordinary-looking stones into sparkling objects of desire.
When you start cutting it, you discover that the light has a journey inside this diamond. It's very amazing that this diamond is transparent, translucent. The light streams through it, but remains captive inside it. And when you cover it with facets, it starts jumping from one facet to another inside the diamond.
So I would say that
the Goldbergs travel to the De Beers sorting house in London 10 times a year to collect rough diamonds to be cut into gemstones.
We prefer to get these beautiful clean crystals where you can make 2 out of them because the yield is much better. This is God's work in diamonds to its ultimate. This most probably for hundreds of million years was washed in the waters and in the mountain, down the mountain. And it reached to the point where it's so clear and crystal. Whereas most probably this is comparable, let's say, to a fetus that's 5 months old. Hey, what an analogy. But it's true.
After the Goldbergs make their selection, it's make it or break it time for the lapidaries. Diamond cutting requires a steady hand and nerves of steel.
You see, you can't cut a diamond and say, oh, I made a mistake, I'm going to take the same diamond and cut it again. It's finished, you destroyed it.
Talk about pressure. There's never been a cutting drama quite the equal of the Cleaver and the Cullinan. It all began in Transvaal, South Africa in 1905, when a brilliantly shiny shard caught the eye of mine manager Fred Wells. He used his penknife to pry the colossal stone out of the wall and brought it to the head office.
It was even said by one of the surveyors who looked at it that it was a piece of crystal and threw it out of the window and said it was no good at all. Frederick Wells, not being quite sure about that, then recovered it.
I mean, it was about sort of size of my fist. There's been no other diamond comparable to it. I always call it something like the 8th wonder of the world.
Diamonds are usually measured in carats. A carat is about 1/5 of a gram, or the size of a small pea. This massive stone, all 3,106 carats of it, was bigger than a baseball. The Cullinan weighed in at 1 1/3 pounds, 3 times larger than any known diamond. The government of South Africa thought it would make a splendid birthday present for King Edward VII of Britain. Surely he wouldn't have another one of these. The dilemma: how to get the hot rock safely to Buckingham Palace. After much debate, Scotland Yard simply put it in an ordinary box, wrapped it in brown paper, and sent the unmarked package via regular mail. They foiled potential thieves by sending a decoy on a ship. By November of 1907, the Cullinan had arrived safely in London, delivered by an unsuspecting postal worker. But the drama was just beginning. Someone would have to cut the Cullinan to bring out the fire inside the ice. But no cutter wanted the destruction of this wonder on his head. The delicate task fell to the venerable firm of Ashers of Antwerp.
It was given to a man called Joseph Asher, and apparently he studied the diamond for some 3 months or more to find out which way the crystalline planes of the diamond went, and then he actually attempted to cleave it, which was of course an enormous amount of pressure on one man. And it is said that when he struck the first blow and the thing fell perfectly in half, that he actually fainted from the pressure of it, woke up, saw that it was intact and hadn't shattered like a car windscreen, and fainted again.
But he didn't destroy the stone, the contrary. He achieved a work of art, right? A beauty. Beauties, because he cut many stones out of it.
The Cullinan yielded 9 large and 96 smaller diamonds. Of the 9, the 2 largest were the 550-carat Great Star of Africa and the 317-carat Lesser Star of Africa. Both huge diamonds continue to catch the eye of crowds who view the British crown jewels at their home in the Tower of London. Exceptionally large diamonds are not the exclusive domain of royalty. One American who always reveled in this high-stakes game of buying and cutting large stones was the King of Diamonds himself, Harry Winston. One of Winston's all-time favorite diamonds was the Jonker, found in South Africa in 1934. The largest diamond to come to light since the Cullinan, it weighed 726 carats, about the size of a plum. Winston paid a fortune for the Jonker, despite warnings that the rough stone was shaped in such a way that made cutting it a 50-50 gamble at best. Knowing that a mere slip of the wrist would leave him with a pile of shattered glass, Lloyd's of London, Winston's insurance company, refused to cover the loss if the diamond was destroyed during the cutting process. So Winston held his breath and upped the ante. He decided to cut the diamond in front of a national audience.
Seems to be exact now, Father.
Found on a South African farm, too large for anybody to buy.
I think he always had a great flair for public relations, publicity. He knew how to create a story for the public, and people were, interested in something that was so small and concentrated and so very valuable.
This groove is to be exactly according to the grain. Otherwise, the stone might shatter into pieces.
Diamond cutter always says that he's never safe until the last facet is finished.
Ah, a perfect cut, right along the plane of cleavage.
The Jonker was reborn as 13 glittering trinkets. Winston kept the largest one himself and set it in a magnificent platinum necklace. In 1951, he reluctantly let it go to King Farouk of Egypt. In 1986, there was yet another diamond-cutting cliffhanger. The same mine that produced the Cullinan 80 years before unearthed this 599-carat beauty. Diamond cutter Gabby Tolkowski was one of the few invited to inspect it.
And effectively, when I've seen it for the first time, I didn't dare touch it because it was so fabulous that I hesitated. The color was what we were talking about, ice. No color. It was like, you know what, the dream you have to go into the Andes in South America, up there in the mountains, and find a lake where the water is so clear that you can see the bottom without even thinking about it. And that was the color of this stone. Water. You could see through it.
Some at the world-famous De Beers Diamond Consortium wanted to leave it in a state of natural splendor. Others voted for polishing to enhance its beauty. The beauty camp won, and Gabby Tolkowski was brought in from Antwerp to cut the diamond.
One of the directors came at lunchtime and knocked on my shoulders and said, you know, by the way, you're going to cut it. And I didn't know what he was talking about. And then he said, but you know, the 599 carat. I couldn't believe it. I said, oh my God, what is going to happen to me?
For months, Gabby and a team of experts studied the diamond from every angle, testing mathematically calculated cuts on models. Finally, the moment of truth arrived.
I didn't need lasers, no computers. I was using with this stone two factors. The oldest of all methods that could exist in the history of diamond, which was removing parts of this diamond by hand for 154 days. I was myself doing it. The two weak hands of the man. Scratching day after day, slots into the diamond and then removing the pieces by hand without knocking even once.
After 3 years of tremendous team effort and the blending of technologies both old and new, the diamond was reduced from 599 to 274 flawless carats. Because of his brilliant work at De Beers, today Gabby Tolkowski is at the cutting edge when it comes to making buried treasure shine its brightest.
It is simply a fabulous, wonderful diamond. Probably the finest modern cut diamond.
De Beers unveiled the diamond at its 100th anniversary ceremony in 1988. Fittingly dubbed the Centenary, it continues its mesmerizing light show, shimmering at its home in South Africa. Day after day, lapidaries around the world sit at the wheel and transform diamonds in the rough into the stuff that dreams are made of. Ever wonder what happens to the carats they whittle away while creating a masterpiece like the Centenary?
Some stones, which this one here, the side, will lose almost 65%. And most of this dust which goes into my lungs. That means I have an expensive lung. A lot of diamond dust.
Diamonds are one of the world's most portable currencies. A fortune can be easily hidden in the palm of a hand or even under a fingernail. Here in the De Beers London diamond sorting houses, millions of dollars in stones are graded every day. To say security is tight would be an understatement. Robin Walker has been working around diamonds for 40 years, from diamond prospecting on the South African plains to his current position as De Beers marketing liaison.
With 2/3 of the world's diamonds passing through London, you can imagine it's a fair amount of money. We obviously take the greatest precautions possible that we can, but when you ask about our security here, this is one area where I'm going to really close up like a clam.
Like magicians guarding their secrets, security officials responsible for protecting the world's most priceless gems prefer not to share the tricks of their trade. At the De Beers mines in South Africa, workers are closely watched to ensure they don't add a diamond to their lunch, the compound with one stuck to the sole of their shoe. But where there's a will, there's a way. Swallowing diamonds will never go out of style. They've also tried shooting them over the fence with a bow and arrow and flying them out on homing pigeons.
We have to use every possible conceivable method of security, whether it's X-rays or whether it's cameras. You are constantly having to be on your alert, and you're constantly having to improve your security.
Today's high-tech monitoring devices are the culmination of centuries of trial and error. Things were more basic in the old days, when security consisted of little more than guards with a good eye and a quick club. The tale of the Regent diamond began when one worker was a little quicker and more cunning than his guards. The golf ball-sized Regent was discovered by a slave working the mines of India in the early 1700s. Envisioning a life of riches, the desperate man cut a wound in his leg and hid the 3-ounce gem under the bandages. The slave made it to the port in Madras and promised an enterprising English sea captain half the profits from the sale of the gem if he smuggled him to freedom. But once out at sea, the captain got other ideas.
It was sold to a British sea captain who allowed the slave on board. The captain decided to take complete possession of the diamond and flung the poor slave into high seas.
The captain returned to the Indian port and sold the stone to an unscrupulous diamond merchant who didn't care how much blood had been spilled to obtain the stone. The story goes that the captain squandered the money on wine, women, and song. Finally broke and supposedly haunted by the ghost of the slave he killed, he saw only one way out.
The British sea captain felt quite remorseful. He ended up dying an alcoholic, and I think he had a number of misfortunes that visited his family. And as a result of the fact that he was hounded by his debtors, he committed suicide by hanging himself.
But one man's bad luck is another's fortune. The diamond merchant soon found a buyer for the stolen gem, the British governor of the Indian port city of Madras, Thomas Pitt. Pitt eventually left his post in India and traveled home to London. However, word of his purchase had spread and earned him a new nickname, Diamond Pitt.
Tom Pitt was very nervous, and he always went armed because he had a morbid sense of death visiting him. Even when recognized, he would not divulge the information that he carried this famous diamond.
And apparently he changed his sleeping quarters every night, slept in a different house for fear that this diamond, someone would grab it.
Sleep-deprived and paranoid, Pitt couldn't take the constant stress of diamond ownership anymore. He tried to sell it, but there were no takers at his price. Eventually he got lucky. A financially secure 7-year-old King Louis XV of France bought the diamond. Louis's regent or advisor, the Duke of Orleans, brokered the deal for the young sovereign, and in reward the diamond was named the Regent.
And it's become the crown jewel, I think, of France. It's venerated, I think, by the French, and I agree it's a superb, lovely diamond.
The 141-carat beauty of the Regent shines on at the Louvre Museum, where it is especially cherished not only for its beauty and its somewhat shady past, but because it was almost lost forever during the dark days of the French Revolution. By 1792, the revolution was well underway. The oppressed were turning the tables on their oppressors, the French royalty. That September, the crown jewels of France disappeared from their home in the Garde Meublé in Paris. Peasants roamed the halls where kings had recently walked. The robbery took on the air of a party, as each night more thieves arrived, bringing bottles of wine with them.
The treasury in France had a major security leak. They stole half the treasury. And amongst them was, of course, the Regent diamond and many other pieces which vanished for many, many years and then resurfaced.
The Regent turned up in an attic, I think, a few days later.
But not all diamond heists are resolved with such good results. In 1964, a notorious theft worthy of a Mission Impossible episode was perpetrated on the Natural History Museum in New York City. The ringleader, Jack Murphy, nicknamed Murph the Surf for his championship surfing days in California, was reportedly inspired by the jewel heist film Topkapi, which had just opened. In the film, a band of sophisticated thieves target the Topkapi's Palace Museum in Turkey. The real-life robbers wouldn't have to be nearly as acrobatic. Murphy and his two accomplices set their sights on the American Museum of Natural History's Gem and Mineral Department. Their goal, the Star of India, one of the world's largest sapphires, and the Eagle, the largest diamond ever found in the United States up until that time. As in the movie, the thieves located an open window and lowered themselves 20 feet to the floor. It couldn't have been easier. The alarm system for the gems had been disconnected months earlier because the electric bills were too high. Cutting through the glass cases, Murph and his cronies got what they came for and made a clean getaway.
Was this obviously a pro job? Professional or non-professional, the gems are stolen. Have you found any prints on any of them?
Jack Murphy got the jewels, but in the end, the long arm of the law caught up with him. Only 2 days after the robbery, an informant put the finger on the trio. Murph was arrested in Miami, brought back to New York, and found guilty for the robbery of more than $410,000 in diamonds and gems. As for the jewels, the sapphire was recovered, but sadly, none of the diamonds, including the Eagle, ever made it back to the Museum of Natural History. As long as new diamonds are uncovered, theft will always be part of the equation. But finding diamonds can be an even trickier business than stealing them. Nothing catches our eye quite like the sparkle of diamonds.
Diamonds are a girl's best friend. They're so beautiful.
But even in an age of plenty, beautiful stones like these don't turn up every day.
Finding a diamond is extremely difficult. I'm one of the very few people working for De Beers in London that's ever actually physically dug diamonds themselves. I used to be a diamond prospector, and I know it is very hard to actually find even one diamond. And the thrill of finding a diamond, even a small one, is really something fantastic. It really gets you.
Perhaps the only thing more fantastic is finding a great big diamond. A 15-year-old South African boy out for a stroll spied this curious stone.
And it wasn't until 1866 that the very first diamond was found in Africa. A shepherd boy found a diamond on the banks of a river, 21 carats in the rough, and the diamond, surprise, surprise, was called the Eureka diamond.
Many suspected land speculators of planting the precious stone and wrote the discovery off as a fluke. But 3 years later, when an even larger diamond was found in the same region, the race was on.
The one that set the whole scene alight was the discovery of the 83-carat star South Africa.
Within 3 years of the discoveries, thousands of fortune seekers had made the sweltering 40-day trek from Cape Town on the coast of South Africa to the small town of Kimberley, near where the Eureka and Star of South Africa had been found. This is what they came all the way for. A mine known simply as Big Hole. Many did indeed make a fortune here, but the reward hinged on perilous risk.
Can you imagine a scene whereby you're looking into the start of a huge crater, you're looking in there, and right below you is like thousands of ants scrambling away. The walls, there's a wall here, there's a wall there, the walls are cracking, the walls are breaking, there's ropeways everywhere. It's a scene of chaos, a scene of shambles.
When they got to the big hole, yes, it was chaotic, a lot of loss of life. Mine machinery falling into the pit, yes, pretty chaotic, but full of atmosphere. Had I been, I would have willingly chanced my arm, left my university and gone out there.
One Oxford-educated Englishman who found himself in the right place at the right time with the right vision for the future was Cecil Rhodes. The man who was to launch the modern diamond industry began buying up individual mining claims and consolidating them into one company.
Cecil Rhodes was the great genius behind it. He saw all this chaos. He brought order to chaos and set up the De Beers Company.
Rhodes named the firm after the De Beers brothers, two farmers who leased land to the diamond prospectors.
And the two brothers thought at any minute you'd strike bedrock and the boom was over. And the two brothers thought, hey, let's be smart. Let's get out whilst the going's good. We've made our money, we're laughing, and things are great. Let's get out. So they sold for a very substantial sum of money.
Timing is everything. Just a year later, a major strike on the farm would forever link the name De Beers with diamonds and leave the De Beers brothers far behind, a footnote to history. Over the years, this fertile ground has produced some of the world's most famous diamonds. One of the most extraordinary finds was a golden stone that has resided in New York City for the past century, the Tiffany diamond.
It was found in the Kimberley mines in 1877. There had never been such a large canary diamond found before. It was enormous. It weighed 287 carats.
Charles Tiffany purchased the stone in Paris for the equivalent of $410,000 in today's currency. He brought the trophy home to New York City, where it became the symbol for his flagship store. Audrey Hepburn is one of the lucky few who have actually worn the gem. She modeled it to publicize the film Breakfast at Tiffany's, but did not actually wear it in the movie. In 1972, there was a public outcry when Tiffany's offered the diamond for sale. Fortunately, no one appeared with the $5 million in cash. Since then, the stone has been declared untouchable. It remains on display for all window shoppers and dreamers to enjoy. Discovering a large diamond like the Tiffany is a once-in-a-lifetime event. In fact, despite all the advances in technology and scientific knowledge, finding diamonds of any size remains a long shot, akin to finding a needle in a haystack.
It could take several hundred tons to be crushed and processed, only to end up with a 1-carat polished diamond. Now that is pretty amazing.
The biggest question facing the diamond prospector of the 21st century is, where will the next famous diamonds come from?
In many places around the world, diamond prospecting is taking place as we speak. There's a man or a woman out there who may suddenly find the great bingo, the great one in millions. We just don't know.
One thing is certain. Diamonds will continue to cast their spell. These famous jewels have had a remarkable journey through the ages, plucked from the earth, treasured, plundered, given in love, and taken in greed. For centuries they have beguiled us, and for centuries more, their beauty and mystery will burn brightly. Diamonds are forever, but now our story is at an end.